I'd like to formally welcome Seonaigh MacPherson to Strathcona Elementary School. Thank you very much for coming. I know this is a super busy time for you.
Yes.
Thank you for helping our kids understand the importance of active citizenship. We're participating in our own vote on Friday, a parallel vote with student votes, and then we compare that with the actual results next Monday. So you're helping us promote democracy, and we wish you good luck.
Good, thank you. So I'm here to win your vote, and there are 4 main parties running in Canada and in Chilliwack-Hope. There are actually 6 candidates, but the 4 main parties are, what's one? Yes? Conservative. Liberal. Green Party. NDP. Do you know which party I'm with? Yes. NDP. So I'm the New Democrat or NDP candidate for Chilliwack-Hope, and I'm running to be your next member of parliament in Ottawa. Right now, the current incumbent, that means the person who was there before, is named Mark Strahl, who's a conservative. So I'm very interested in, we call it defeating him, right, in getting more votes than he gets. So when we run, sometimes children ask me about negative versus positive. We tend to say both. We say what the NDP or what I will offer, but we also say why the other person or the other party isn't very good. And so this is a choice you make, because when you vote for someone, but you also vote against someone, right? Because you can only choose one person or one party to vote for. So I tend to say the positive, but if you ask me about another party, then I might share with you the negatives of that party. All right, so I'm going to give you a bit of background on the New Democrats, and then I'll take your questions. Okay, the New Democrats are the only party that emerged in Canada. The Conservatives and Liberals came from Europe, from England, and the Greens came from New Zealand. The NDP comes from Canada, and we started in the prairies in the west and spread to Ontario in what was called the United Farmers Alliance. So they were farmers who got together to say enough is enough. We want to protect our families so that we aren't starving. My great-grandparents were farmers in Saskatchewan, and people died in their community from starvation, in fact, when the potato crops failed in the late 1800s. So there was a lot of suffering, actually, in the prairies among farmers. So they organized this party that was called the United Farmers Alliance. And then it became what was called the Cooperative Commonwealth Federation, CCF. And what that means is that we care about cooperating together, that working people, poor people, middle-class people need to cooperate to ensure that our interests are protected against the rich people who often try to use the system and use labor and farmers to help get them rich. So we started to form a party, first CCF, and one of our leaders was Tommy Douglas in Saskatchewan. And he became the premier who introduced Medicare to Canada. And then he went and formed the New Democratic Party out of the CCF. So again, what are our values? When you vote, you have to ask, what are the values and the traditions of this party? And what are my values? Does anyone know what the CCF and NDP stand for? What our core values are? Hi. Hi, Susan.
She's mine.
I know. Okay. I met her at the debate. Okay, so the core value of the New Democrats, I would say, are 2 things. Equality. The need to have more equality in our society. And second of all, the need to cooperate together to make a better society. So equality and cooperation, that's why we're called the Cooperative Commonwealth Federation. And then we became New Democrats because we really believe in democracy and cooperating to make democracy better. That's why I always say yes to every school invitation, because I know your voting matters, even if it doesn't count in our election in Canada. It counts. It counts to me and it counts to this society. Okay, so if we want equality and cooperation, then why would we do that? What does it look like if we don't have equality and we don't have cooperation? Well, the New Democrats, remember I said brought in Medicare. If we didn't have Medicare, you would only be able to go to see a doctor if your family had enough money to do it, or you had private insurance to pay for it. Now, if you get sick, no matter who you are, your parents can take you to the doctor and take you to the hospital, and you're fine. I often tell the story of a friend of mine whose sister lives in the United States, and they had no medical insurance. True story. Her daughter broke her arm, and she left it 3 weeks, her mother, because they didn't have enough money to go to the hospital to check it out. So actually, she was left with a broken arm for 3 weeks until they had enough money and felt it was serious enough to spend that much money, which would have been probably $500 to have an X-ray and get it looked at. So it's actually quite serious, right? And it harmed people, and that's why Tommy Douglas, he was a minister actually in the church. He felt it was really important that we have a good political party that can introduce things that allow us to share our taxes, cooperate together to make Medicare happen. And he did it always balancing the budget, not overtaxing, keeping the budget at zero. He introduced Medicare because it's a priority, right? It's a priority. The other parties now, especially the Conservatives, believe you give money to the rich and the rich make jobs, like corporations. Except they don't. They also keep a lot of the money back. In Canada, corporations have stockpiled $700 billion, which is a lot of money, even though their taxes were brought down, 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 down. And they're not even people. We are the people, and your parents are the people. And so we should count the most, and that's what the NDP believe. The government should serve the people, not wealthy corporations. We have to help them and keep their tax reasonable so that they'll stay and employ, but not where they benefit more than they should from our taxation and our society. So does that help you understand the NDP? Personally, I'm a professor at the university in education. I've worked in schools, but now I work in teaching people who teach adults. I teach them how to teach. But I also worked in India, helping refugees in the Himalayas for many years. And I also used to work in Manitoba. So I grew up in Ottawa. So I have good knowledge of the whole country, as well as Chilliwack-Hope. And I understand something about the world. So I think that's enough.
Thank you so much for sharing your platform.
Yeah.
We have 6 questions for you.
Oh, okay.
Is that okay?
Of course it is.
So if you didn't ask a question yesterday, maybe you're brave enough to ask one today. So remember, guys, to introduce yourself. And Seonaigh, if you could repeat the question, that would be awesome.
Okay, yes, I will do that. Oh.
Yeah, please.
Okay.
Will you limit less hunting?
Will I limit hunting? It's not up to the federal government to limit hunting. That's a provincial jurisdiction. So in Canada, there are 3 levels of government, right? There's the city, Chilliwack-Hope, there's the province, British Columbia, and there's the federal, which is Canada. So at the Canada level, we don't have a lot to say about hunting, but we do have things to say about endangered species. And I'll be a strong advocate to protect endangered species. Okay, yeah.
My name's Emma, and how do you plan to control immigration?
How do I plan to control immigration? Okay, so I don't know if the word is control. Help with it. Okay, that's a good idea. How do we plan to manage or facilitate or help with immigration? Good. That's an area I worked in for many years. So the first thing we have to do is to make sure it's a fair system so that the people who are coming here, if they're immigrants, are coming with the best skills and for the best reasons. Those are immigrants. Refugees are different though, like you're seeing in the news. Refugees come because they're suffering. You see that? We can choose who comes here based on whether they are doctors, lawyers, have good skills, trades like welders. But for refugees, we're supposed to help them because every person in the world, we say it's a right, has the right to have a country, a place to live. So everyone's supposed to chip in and help. So that's why every party is saying we'll help those refugees come to Canada. And I work in this area, but it's really difficult. They need education, they need help to settle. So we'll make sure first that they're cleared and they are the people who most need it, and that they're also, they aren't criminals or aren't planning to do something negative here. Once that's done in the country where they are coming from, we let them in and we help them with language, learning English or French. That's the area I worked in educating adults who are refugees and immigrants. We teach them about Canadian values. They learn from one another. People from all over the world interact in the classroom. It's really beautiful to see, actually. So people from China will interact with people from the Middle East, with people from Europe, and they get to learn what is Canada, what is multiculturalism, and they also learn skills so that they can get a job. So actually Canada has done this very well. We have a very good reputation, even though we have very, very high levels of immigration. People here get along. So I hope to keep that up. Yes, dear. Oh, yes. Yes. What's your name?
Kiara.
Kiara?
My name is Kiara, and how can we create more jobs for Canadians?
How can we create more jobs for Canadians? Very important question. One way is to invest in more ways where young people or new people entering the workforce can start in a job and get training on the job. So they don't have to go to school. They can start a job and the company will allow them to learn on the job. But many companies or businesses or organizations can't afford to do that. So the NDP is going to help them by paying part of their salary for those new employees so that the workplace will teach them and they'll become skilled. And then it'll be really easy for them to find a job. So that's often the problem, is that the people who are applying for a job don't have the skills. So let's say you want to work in a store. You have to know how to work that cash register, right? And what if they say, no, we'll only hire someone who already knows how to work that cash register? Then you can never get a job. So we say, okay, you teach them how to use the cash register, for example. We'll help pay part of their salary or part of their wages, and then you get to learn how to work it. Okay?
My name is Cassie, and my question is, what will you do to improve the environment?
Okay, that's a really important question. What will we do, the NDP, to improve the environment? We have the strongest environmental program, I believe, and I think you will, even stronger than the Greens. So don't be misled by the green. It's a nice color, but orange, I always say, is like red, like liberal with sunshine, you know. So we have the highest climate change targets. So the emission standards. So we're going to lower the industrial emissions. We're going to cap and trade So that's going to be the lowest of any political party, what we'll do. So we'll reduce the emissions so that our global temperature does not rise above 2%. Because if it rises above 2%, there'll be a lot of suffering. A lot of species will die, and humans will suffer from drought, and more people will start to become refugees. So we're going to make it force industry, by having emission standards, to lower their pollution. Second of all, we're going to transfer from a reliance on oil, because that's the problem, right, carbon, to renewable energy sources. Do you know what those are? Yeah.
Like electricity?
Well, electricity is what they generate. A source of electricity that's renewable. A non-renewable is oil, right, or gas. But a renewable means it can constantly regenerate. You don't run out of it. And that's things like solar. Solar energy. Yeah.
Sometimes batteries, you can have chargers for batteries.
Yeah, so a solar will charge a battery, right? Wind energy will charge, and it'll keep coming. We don't run out of wind, do we? See, it's interesting, right? We can use the wind, and it generates electricity. And you can put wind right in the water. You can set them up in the ocean. They do this in Denmark. And have the wind, they're big windmills, kind of, you know? And they go like this, and they create energy, and then we use energy. And we're not causing climate change. We're not using fossil fuels. And it also, we won't run out. So we're planning to change all the government cars for the federal government to electric. And we're planning to help places like Chilliwack, the city, shift over to green sources like solar and wind. We're also planning to protect water, salmon, and other kinds of species that are important for our health and for a healthy environment. Okay.
2 more questions.
Okay, so, okay.
My name is Kyler, and how can you help seniors?
Thank you, Kyler. So Kyler asked, how can we help seniors? The New Democrats have the best health care program of any political party, even though we're going to balance the budget. Now, I'm not saying that. If I say it, you might not believe me, right? You think, oh, she's biased, right? But actually, the doctors, the Association of Doctors in Canada, is called the College of Family Physicians. They evaluated every political party for our health care proposals. And they, out of 22, they gave the NDP a mark of 12 that were excellent. Doesn't sound that good, 12 out of 22, but actually it's really good. 12 were excellent, and 9 were quite good, and 2 were nothing. The Liberals had only 5 excellent, not 12, 5, and a few, about 7 okay, and about another, I forget the number, maybe 10 were nothing. The Conservatives had 0 excellent for healthcare. So one thing that's really important for seniors is that they have good health care, and the New Democrats are the party to do that. We're introducing pharmacare so that your drugs, your pharmacy drugs, will become cheaper and maybe someday free as well. And we're introducing some programs for children and youth to help with kids who are vulnerable to mental health issues. We're helping with Alzheimer's, and very targeted funding. The other thing we're doing is reducing the retirement age from 67 to 65, ensuring that seniors are not falling into poverty. So that's called the Guaranteed Income Supplement. We're increasing that to make sure that people who are poor, when they can't work as seniors, are protected. We're implementing long-term care so that they have beds if they get sick, and home care so they can stay in their beds. Stay in their homes as long as possible. That's what I want. Most people do. They want to stay at home. They don't want to go to a senior's home. Does that help? Okay, Cadence?
If you become elected, Would you try and change the law about abortion? The law that make that abortion is okay?
Right, okay, well, no political party will do that. It's a very good question, oh, sorry. Would I change the law about abortion
Would you like bring
if
up
I
the
was
suggestion?
elected? Sorry?
Would you like bring up the suggestion to change the law?
Would I bring up the suggestion? The reason I won't do that, or no one will do that, no party will do that, is because it's not up to Parliament anymore. Okay, political parties, politicians can't do everything. We have courts, so there's called a balance of power. There are decisions that the court makes in Canada, the Supreme Court, and then there are decisions the government makes. So if we pass a law, the Supreme Court can say, no, you're not allowed to pass that law. And they can't just do it on a whim. They use the Canadian Charter. The Canadian Charter is our constitution, and it talks about human rights. Okay, so I can't say, oh, let's pass a law that all children are to be taken from their parents and put in a common school and we'll raise them together. That would be, even if it's a popular vote for the majority, the Supreme Court would strike it down, we call it, and then Parliament cannot pass laws about it. And many times it's protecting minorities. That means if how many people are here in your class? 28. So if we say majority rules, how many votes do you need in a class of 28?
15.
15, very good. You need 15. So if we said, let's have a rule that everyone with brown hair gets to have a really good lunch, and everyone with lighter hair has to go outside for lunch and gets no food, but everyone has to contribute $3. So if everyone voted for themselves who has brown hair and said yes, so we got 17 votes, would that be fair? What about the people with blonde hair who then have no food and are out in the... Well, the blonde-haired people in this room are a minority. You see what I mean? They're the smaller amount. So those minorities, like people with blonde hair, right, have to be protected from the majority, right? The majority cannot harm the minority. So that's what the Charter is intended to do. And the Charter, the Supreme Court ruled on abortion and said that politics can no longer interfere. And the reason is there's a mother and a baby when the baby's inside the mother. So the issue is whose rights come first, the mother or the baby, if the baby's inside the mother. That's a difficult question, right? The Supreme Court says the mother has the choice. So you can't risk a mother's life for an unborn baby. You can say it's right or wrong. It's how the Supreme Court ruled. So we respect the rule of law. But it doesn't say that they support it. They just say it's the choice of women to make that choice. So that's why no political party, and the Conservatives make it out like they support it. Stephen Harper said no, he will never introduce that legislation because the only path to the success is to harm our Constitution. And that would be to break the rule of law in Canada. It would be to use, I'll tell you how it is, it's too complicated probably for you, but it would be the only path to addressing that issue would be to use the notwithstanding clause, which has never been done in Canada and should not be done. It would mean the majority of the brown-haired could say, too bad if that's not fair, we're using the notwithstanding clause and you're out. It's very dangerous, right? So therefore, it's a choice in Canada, and our party doesn't support reintroducing it to Parliament because it would offend the Constitution. Ooh, that was a difficult question.
A lot of questions. Thank you for tackling those questions,
Yes.
Seonaigh. We have one last kind of summary question for you.
Okay.
We've been asking this to all candidates. So you're running for election you're running to be elected to be the representative of Chilliwack-Hope in the House of Commons.
Yes.
And if you are elected, what will be the single most important issue that you would like to achieve or tackle during that term? What would you like to do for Chilliwack-Hope if you were elected?
Personally, I think the most important issue, well, there's two, probably thereabouts. The first one are children, actually. It's one reason I'm very motivated to help with the quality of life of children in Chilliwack and Hope. And the reason I say that is that actually we have a problem with children. A lot of children, more than most in the province, enter kindergarten already having a lot of problems and challenges. And I think that's not fair. And part of it is because we're a little poorer than other places, and Hope is even worse, that children deserve a good place to grow before you enter kindergarten too, right? And if both your parents are working, they have to find someone to take care of you. It's really hard. The NDP is proposing a childcare program that would give children a safe place, a good place like this school, to grow in from when they're a baby through to 5 years old, if both of their parents are working. And right now we have an extreme shortage of good, we call it regulated childcare, that would mean a good environment like this school for young children. Instead, parents are running around trying to find grandparents, neighbors, young teenagers to take care of their kids. So we think young children deserve better. And you're the only group that of citizens that doesn't get to vote. You see, is that fair? That adults have to vote for your interests. And sometimes we say, forget it, we'll wait. Forget it, we'll wait. We're going to reduce taxes, buy a nice car. Forget it, we'll wait. I say no. I'm running for you in part. Because children deserve a better voice in Ottawa. The Liberal government promised to address child poverty in 1994, 1997, 2000, and 2004. Except when they got in power, when they formed government, they did nothing. They didn't open one childcare space because instead they decided to lower taxes for corporations, for the wealthy, and do whatever else they were doing. So I say enough is enough. Our most important platform in the NDP is to implement affordable, accessible childcare and give young children and families a safe place to grow in before you enter kindergarten. That's the most important. The second most important to me is the environment and climate change. So we also are the strongest party on that platform, I believe, and certainly comparable to the Greens. We would be equal in that respect. So that's also important.
Okay, guys, can we show our appreciation to Seonaigh? Thank you so much for coming in. I know it's an incredibly busy time. We appreciate it. And once again, you're helping these kids develop strong citizenship skills and encouraging democracy. And we want to give kids a voice, and you helped with that today. So thank you.
Great. Thank you very much.
I'm just going to turn this off now so we can all relax.